Hey, this is Sleeper. Welcome back to my channel. We are finishing up the learning process module from Hack the Box Academy with the process, and here we go. Starting with focus. Let us dive a little deeper. This time we will talk about focus, which is a vital skill that we need. However, like many other abilities, it is a double-edged sword. When we talk about focus, we are talking about focusing on a subject for a specific time. When we focus on a subject, we concentrate most of our thinking and attention on the chosen topic. In doing so, all other thoughts concerning other topics will be completely faded out. Have we ever wondered why most frustrated people go straight to the gym after a stressful day instead of just lying down and doing nothing? Why do they feel better afterward? Often we hear from them that they absolutely need it to calm down again. If you think about it, it seems illogical at first because these people need additional physical energy in an exhausted state. This raises, again, the question, why further physical effort helps them to calm down? On the other hand, so-called endorphins, happiness hormones, are produced in the body when doing workouts. These have different effects on the body, and one of them is the reduction of pain. Also, the chemical transmitters have a calming effect and ensure a restful sleep. Another function is the formation and regulation of hunger. We probably know the latter from sports. As soon as we have exhausted ourselves, the feeling of hunger comes. Another beneficial effect of endorphins is the strengthening of the immune system, not only on the physical, but also on the psychological level. This may explain why we start to feel better afterward, but after all, the most significant stress is not in the body, but the mind. We know that after sports, the body is exhausted, but why does our mind start to relax? We are entirely focused on the physical exercises during the workout, since these usually require a large amount of energy that also requires our entire focus. Also, as the focus turns away from the actual stress, we let go of the situations that have stressed us so much, and these are subconsciously processed, and for the most part, solved. Here's an example of such a situation that you have probably experienced by yourself. You've probably forgotten where you put something, or you can't think of a specific term that is so obvious to you. Have you ever asked yourself why you can suddenly remember it after a short time? We distracted ourselves and focused on a topic. With that, we gave our subconscious the possibility to solve the problem by itself. It is essential to differentiate between focus and attention, because they are not the same. Attention refers to the momentum, as it is happening right now, and you are reading this text. However, the focus is on the topic you are dealing with at the moment. When we return to the example of the misplaced keys, try to remember what was going through your mind. Most likely it was something like, where did I put the keys? Or where did I see them last? If these were the questions we were asking ourselves, we could see from the questions alone that it is the subject of the keys, and therefore our focus was on finding the keys. If you have been in the situation where you said to yourself at the same time, okay, the keys are not here, then we had our complete attention on searching for the keys. However, what if we are in a hurry? Then we look at our watch every 5 seconds, and our thoughts are already on where we expect it to be soon. we will hardly be able to concentrate on the search for the keys because your focus is on being late and not on finding the keys. It should have become clearer that focus and attention are not the same, and that attention is influenced by focus. The focus is based on our will and what we want to achieve. It can be a conscious decision and a subconscious decision guided by external influences. Focusing is the purposeful and deliberate alignment to a specific goal. Focused people are not only enormously persistent and tenacious, but they are also hardly distracted or discouraged. If we know our goal, it is easier to align our focus accordingly. This, in turn, makes us much more efficient, and we get closer to our goal much faster, and do not let ourselves be distracted by external influences. Attention. It can be said that attention is the perception of a specific topic with a higher level of interest in order to gather specific data and information from it. Our attention changes with our experience and the information we gain from the content and its clarity. Attention is influenced by your interests, needs, personal attitudes, beliefs, orientations, goals, and experiences. We have already approached this module with a confident attitude, expectation, orientation, and goal. Attention is an independent mental process that takes place subconsciously. So when we talk about concentration, we mean the maintenance of our attention on a specific topic. This means that as long as we are interested in a given topic, we keep working on it until we have achieved the desired result for our well-being. Again, attention goes hand in hand with concentration and focus. We will already know that our attention will begin to decrease at some point, and we will no longer be able to absorb information effectively. We are getting stuck at this point, forcing ourselves to keep trying, and learning ends up with problems of understanding and therefore with higher frustration. Information security is a vast subject, as we have already discussed. We will not be able to absorb all the information at once. We will often come back to topics and repeat what we are missing. This is a normal process. We must understand how to divide our attention. There is no general formula that we can use to learn how to divide our attention correctly. This is an individual process that cannot be categorized yet without diving too deep into psychology studies. There are far too many personal characteristics and experiences of each individual to be taken into account. We know that attention takes place at the moment and therefore has a limited duration to maintain it. It will be a great advantage to find out how long and emotional state our attention span lasts the longest. We can document it, and after 1 week, we will be able to see an interesting pattern. If we want to approach this on a more scientific level, we can add the following points to our documentation to get a better insight into it. Current emotional state: calm, nervous, worried, happy, depressed, relaxed, etc. The previous flow of the day so far, also with one word. Place of work, working hours, duration, sleep, inserted breaks, duration of the breaks, and anything else we can think of. These are phrases for which we must invest at least 1 hour of our attention. Make it fun, and we will surprise ourselves with the discoveries that we make. We can create a simple list or even a table for us to document this quickly and easily. We do not have to document it every time we start something, but we could relate it to the current module, course, or path. Once we know how our attention span is behaving, we will also get an idea of how we can split it up. However, this does not mean that if we have an attention span of 60 minutes, we can divide it between 3 other topics of 20 minutes each. Remember that the amount of attention we can devote to a particular topic depends on too many factors. Experiment with this. Change our place of work, working hours, duration of work if possible. Listen to different music and try out different things that might help us out. It would be best if we did not force ourselves to focus on a specific topic, because it will have a negative effect and, as mentioned before, can end up in frustration, which we will discuss in another section. Make sure that you feel comfortable and ready to learn new things. Comfort. Comfort is an emotional state of a person's mind which, among other aspects, has a strong influence on behavior, thinking, focus, attention, and the ability to concentrate. This is the feeling of well-being in the form of comfort and the attitude of risk-free behavior. This is also often referred to as the so-called comfort zone, in which the person thinks he or she is located. There's a so-called Yerkes-Dodson law, which describes the cognitive performance as a function of the level of stress/nervousness. The performance curve for this is also very individual, as it depends strongly on emotional and motivational factors, and is divided into 4 sections. The most used presentation of this law and the performance process is the Hebbian version. When it comes to comfort, it depends heavily on whether we have a healthy level of stress or have crossed the threshold leading to a reduction in our performance. It is very individual here with where our center is. We are in an area that we are used to and that we consider comfortable. Mostly these are situations and fields in which we have already gained a certain amount of experience and know how to find our way there. When we leave the so-called comfort zone, we enter a situation or field where we have little or no experience. This kind of uncertainty lowers our ability to think and has a powerful impact on our thought processes, which in turn slows us down. The fact that small children do not exhibit such uncertainty is interesting. They love to try something new all the time and are not afraid or uncertain of making mistakes. After all, mistakes are an essential part of the learning process, and we should always keep that in mind. An interesting question that arises here is, why small children, unlike adults, do not feel such uncertainty? Let's first take a look at the following diagram. Now imagine you are standing at the entrance in front of a massive dark forest in the middle of the night. This forest is so dense that no daylight can get through the treetops. To the left and right of this forest, some cliffs are much too steep to climb down, and we know that somewhere in this forest there is the one thing we want to have. Will you go inside and look for it? Common sense would do anything not to. But what if the thing you want is 100 yards further into the forest and is brightly lit? That is the thing that will fulfill you the way we have always wanted it to. Would you risk it now? Those who chose to leave the comfort zone would reach their destination faster than they thought they would. They would never have sprinted at such speed before in their lives. Now we should understand the progression between decisions to step out of our comfort zone or stay in it. We will often get into situations where we do not know what to do. These will come again and again. However, we will also learn something new, and it will become more comfortable each time. Obstacles. Besides all the effective qualities we have come to know so far, many obstacles slow us down or even completely prevent us from reaching our goals, solving specific tasks, or acquiring and mastering skills. These are all factors that prevent us from leaving our comfort zone and daring to try something new. Fear. People are often afraid of something new, of something they do not know, and cannot evaluate if it could harm them somehow. There are many different types of fear. For us, however, only two are relevant for the time being. First, we need to distinguish between fear in dangerous situations and interpreted fear for the learning process. Fear in dangerous situations is necessary and serves us to protect one's own life or those of loved ones. However, interpreted fear belongs to an imaginary state of fear. This means that we can feel fear without us being in a life-threatening situation, which the human body can even signal as pain, because the fear is an emotional state, and therefore subconscious, that in extreme cases can even lead to the malfunction of the heart, broken heart syndrome. An excellent example of such a fear behavior in human nature, which everyone knows, is the alien movies, in which humanity fights against aliens. In most movies, aliens land on Earth, and the relationship problems start. A more common example is when suddenly someone unknown bangs on our front door. At this moment, we are surprised and get scared. After all, we do not know if it is a criminal or someone who needs help. Imaginary fear is directed at events we imagine, with consequences that we calculate. However, there is one crucial aspect that we cannot leave out. People fear what might happen in the future while not considering the present. Fear in non-life-threatening situations lies in the thoughts of the imaginary future, in a future that we imagine and imagine ourselves. The more detailed we imagine it, the greater the fear becomes. Will Smith also reported his experience with the confrontation with his fear. You can check that out. Imaginary fear is an emotional state that keeps us from having the best experiences and prevents us from moving forward on the desired path. Even if we want to be excellent penetration testers, most beginners are afraid to put their maximum energy into it because of the imaginary fear of failure. This is due to many other factors that we will go into shortly. However, if we find ourselves feeling such fear, then we should answer the following question in as much detail as possible. Which of the mentioned reasons are actually real right now? Another factor that reinforces this imaginary fear and makes us think we will fail is our previous failures. One thing we should remember in advance, write it down and hang it on the wall where we can always see it. The difference between a winner and a loser is that the winner has lost more often than the loser. Failure is essential to learning and unavoidable. No one has ever acquired a skill without making a single mistake. It is quite the opposite. Our failures are crucial in our learning curve because they give us momentum to climb higher. In doing so, we reach a point where we have been before, but already know what to expect at a higher level. This makes it easier for us to master this uphill climb because we have already slipped once at this point and know that we have to take a different path to get higher. Many people give up here. We can think of it as just sitting there hoping we will get higher without moving. Even if a rope is handed to us from above, which we can use to pass the spot, it will not do any good if we do not move. Mindset. It is in these situations that our excuses come up, like, I cannot do this. This is not for me. I do not understand this, etc. This comes from our mindset and how we think about situations and certain things. The mindset consists of thought processes we unconsciously acquire to avoid difficult situations or efforts. Such thought processes are also formed during our upbringing. For example, a child constantly criticized for their successes and failures will find it challenging to dare to try something new. However, the lack of criticism makes the child overconfident, which can lead to misjudgment of their abilities. A mindset can also be described as a set of different, not only culturally conditioned, beliefs. An example is a belief that eye contact is a sign of interest and openness everywhere. However, in Japan, this is considered an invasion of privacy and considered rude. It is advisable to be aware of such thought processes. Once we understand our own way of thinking, we have more information to work with, and thus know better what we can and would like to change. For example, when we catch ourselves thinking thoughts like, I cannot, we can easily change them from bad feelings to good feelings. The only thing we have to do is to add the word yet. I cannot do this yet. This is not for me yet. I do not understand this yet. Etc. Yet. Just kidding. This has the effect of stimulating our beliefs and thus the mindset to pass this obstacle. All obstacles and feelings that prevent us from doing so are temporary. These feelings pass, but the goal remains. Another factor often perceived as an obstacle is comparing skill, talent, and passion. However, we have already learned what constitutes talent. Talent is a strongly developed skill with high efficiency. Skill is the ability to manage or solve something well. And passion is an emotional commitment to a particular area. If we take a closer look at these definitions, we will see that they are interrelated and mutually supportive, and not, as many believe, holding them back. We all have different talents, thought patterns that make some tasks easier to understand and others a little more complicated, skills we learn, and the passion and dedication to achieve the desired goal. All this depends on the goal we want to achieve, not on the components that help us achieve it. Pressure. Pressure can also be described as mental stress, the totality of all detectable external and internal influences. Psychology pressures affect people based on a situation. They make demands on their resources. The term stress, therefore, describes a characteristic of conditions and not characteristics of people. In contrast to the term pressure, the term stress describes the non-specific reaction of the organism to any form of pressure. The occurrence of stress requires a sensory perception of the stress-triggered stimulus and a nervous transmission of such a stimulus to a stimulus processing region of the body. Accompanying symptoms of the biochemical level are usually the release of stress hormones, such as catecholamines, glucocorticoids, and other secretions. A distinction is made between internal and external influences. The internal influences include the beliefs of our mindsets, but also our attitudes. Such an attitude or character trait is always a two-sided sword that brings advantages and disadvantages. One of such traits can be perfectionism, for example, which awakens in us the desire to do everything flawlessly, perfectly, and above all, quickly. It is challenging to dampen such character traits because they occur unconsciously and are reflected in the form of emotions. For example, if we feel uncomfortable and overwhelmed by a task, we unconsciously think we are not up to the task. Often we ask ourselves, why should we continue with it at all? Since our subconscious governs it, it is not necessary to put our brain into a different mode, forcing our brain to function differently. A specific category of activity that forces our brain to behave differently is called creativity. One such creative activity is making music or drawing. The reason is that we force the brain to invent something new. At the same time, we cannot focus on the mindset while developing something new, as this requires completely different thought processes than dealing with the task. If we find ourselves in a situation where we do not know what to do, we can pursue some activity requiring us to do something new. It does not matter what we do, but rather that it requires our creativity. External influences are what others think and say about us. It can also be that strict deadlines are set for us that we must adhere to. However, it can also be that someone tries to influence us negatively. Many people do this to push their own ego, which has little to do with us and our abilities. Such people often claim to be better at something than we are. However, if we think back to our examples of the mindset we discussed earlier, we can also attach the word yet to these sentences and see how quickly we will overtake them. Knowing that we only feel verbally attacked by people we attribute a high value to is essential. For example, there's a big difference between a stranger on the street calling us an idiot and our loved ones. So if we think highly of that person or their abilities, we will value their statements highly and often even place them above our own opinions. Otherwise, we care little about what that person says. We can eliminate external influences more easily than many might think. All we need is our clearly defined goal. If we have such a goal that we follow passionately, hardly anyone will talk us out of it. It is even less likely if we know that we can achieve this goal. We should remember the following. Only the person who has taken the exact same journey as you can evaluate you and your decisions. Everything else is only assumptions. Questioning. Learning to ask the right questions is an art and a critical skill. It does not matter what situation we are in or whether we are discussing technical or non-technical topics. However, Many people do not know the difference between right and wrong questions. Most do not even know what a question is. At the moment, we define questions and see their purpose as gathering information and facts from which we can draw conclusions and make assumptions that will guide our decisions and thus our future course of action. However, this opinion will soon change. Apart from that, questions often serve for orientation. By this, we mean that we can get an overview based on the questions we ask, which helps us to find more information about the topic we are concerned with. Questions represent the view of the situation before we can take the next step and move on our way. Metaphorically speaking, we use them to see where we want to be or can take our next step. Especially in our field of cybersecurity and above all in penetration testing, we should keep the following in mind. The most important and most difficult thing in any situation is not the search for the right answer, but the search for the right question. So we'll go ahead and pause here for today, and we'll finish up the questioning, handling frustration, and learning process summary in the final section. Once again, my name is Sleeper, and that's a wrap. Until next time.